Here's a fantastic show that deserves more recognition. Tron Uprising. Set in between both Tron movies, Kevin Flynn created The Grid, a digital world, along with the hero Tron and Flynn's digital clone program known as Clue. But eventually, Clue usurped power, Flynn fled into exile, and Tron is seemingly derezzed. Eventually, one program named Beck, played by Elijah Wood, after the derezzing of one of his friends, is driven into fighting against the regime. Eventually, Beck finds out that Tron actually isn't derezzed, but he's not in great shape, so Tron decides to teach Beck how to be the new Tron to save the grid and start the uprising to topple Clue. Shenanigans ensue, as Beck tries to keep his friends Mara and Zed, as well as his job, while also trying to keep his identity as Tron secret, as the regime keeps trying to claim that Tron's dead and Beck is only a renegade. Right off the bat, this is my favorite looking show of all time. The animation itself is absolutely wonderful and energetic, full of tons of life and energy.
What a waste. They usually don't last as long. Who are you?
You said it yourself. I'm Tron!
The show was designed by people who made my two other favorite art designs, Early Gorillas and Spider-Verse, and it looks like a mix between those, as well as Elon Flux and Tron Legacy, of course. All the character designs are perfect. They have tons of emotion in their faces. I love how they have unique light lines. And the characters who are meant to resemble characters from the films all look like who they're supposed to. The lighting in the show is absolutely gorgeous. The backgrounds are gorgeous. Just literally every frame of the show is a work of art, with excellent cinematography. Which is a very Tron thing. Both films were groundbreaking from when they came out and still look very good. Well, for the most part. But of course, because this show doesn't have the restraints of live action, we can see some very damn good art and unique character designs. The characters are also really good. Beck is a very Spider-Man-esque character who's a nice guy who's struggling with trying to be a hero and trying to keep his identity a secret. Tron's a tough love mentor who does have a good relationship with Beck for the most part until his past mistakes come to haunt him. Mara and Zed are his co-worker friends. Mara's the more optimistic one about the Renegade, and Zed's more pessimistic and thinks that Tron's only doing more bad than good. And their boss Abel's kind of their father figure. Our villains are led by General Tesler, played by Lance Hendrickson, aka Bishop from Aliens. He's the overseer of our part of the grid for the series, known as Argus. Tesler's a very realistically scary overseer who manipulates the truth for his own gain, and he's not afraid to execute his own men. He's very able to take on Beck just by himself.
You're no Tron. You're not.
There's Pavel, the very Starscream-like, cowardly kiss-ass who's always trying to get power. He is somehow played by Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman of all people, and he actually does a stellar job. Again, he reminds me of Starscream from Transformers, but Paul Reubens has this odd, psychotic nature to him that gives the character more life.
Seems like Tesler's on shaky ground. You don't think Clue's considering demoting him? Not me neither.
There's Paige, who used to be a medic, until Tesler came to her town and framed Cora from Legacy for derezzing her friends. Now Paige is a Clue supporter. Her and Pavel are on the same level, but Pavel constantly will try to usurp power and make Paige look bad. And near the end of the season, you can tell there was somewhat of a redemption arc brewing with her. Clue only makes very brief cameos throughout the season because, well, he is needed for a legacy, but his presence is felt throughout the series. And then the show gets really, really good with the introduction of Dyson, a guard who got a really bad injury, supposedly by the ISOs, which he hates. The ISOs are people who developed independently on the grid and were not created by Flynn, and him and Clue think that the ISOs are an abomination because they have no place, they were not programmed. But Flynn loves them because they weren't programmed, they developed independently, and he thinks they're the key to make the perfect system. And he doesn't repair Dyson because he's on his whole the perfect beauty of imperfection thing. So Dyson was repaired by Clue, so Dyson helped Clue usurp power from Flynn and tortured Tron. He doesn't make a lot of appearances, but he's the thing that really sets the show off, especially with the introduction of another villain, Cyrus. He was the first renegade before Beck. He wants to destroy the grid and start again. After that fails, he goes around framing Beck for a bunch of derezzing, and he sets up this massive jigsaw saw-esque trap.
No matter what you do, someone will not survive.
So with time running out, I have to ask,
Who will you save?
Abel actually knows about Tron. Friends become enemies forcibly, sometimes temporarily, sometimes permanently, sometimes not even forcibly. Even the most optimistic about the Renegade even question if he's doing any good. And then by the end, Tron is actually healed by getting a little reprogramming. And then finally, people are no longer sitting idly by. The uprising begins. Just for Clue to finally show up with an armada. Sadly, there's only 19 episodes to this series. It really just seems like nothing Tron related does well at its initial release. Despite the series having very positive reviews at the time and winning 3 awards for art design and character design, 2 Annies and an Emmy Award, Disney was still disinterested in the series, so new episodes aired at midnight on a Monday, and the show was canceled. It's sort of like Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. It's an absolutely wonderful show that was canceled after 1 season for poor reasons. But of course, due to the nature of the series being a prequel to a movie, I do know what eventually will happen. Literally, that is kind of what happens with Tron Legacy. Clue wins, and everyone's either de-rezzed or reprogrammed into his army, including Tron, who becomes the Rinsler, Clue's personal assassin. I do know what's going to happen, I just still want to see more. And the future of Tron's very weird. It's been about 13-ish years since Legacy was originally released, and as of early 2023, it's still very weird what's going to happen with the franchise. As for now, we might have a Jared Leto-led film called Tron Ares. Hopefully that's good. And as for this series, this is the best thing with the Tron brand on it. With wonderful storytelling and characters, amazing designs, it's a love letter to not just Tron Legacy, but also the original Tron, with tons of references that Legacy didn't even have. Oh, and the soundtrack, oh, it's so good. It has a lot of the iconic Daft Punk soundtrack from Tron Legacy, as well as a lot of original stuff that sounds absolutely fitting for the series. Overall, I'm glad I got to revisit this series, and I'm glad that it's streaming on Disney Plus currently. Knowledge is a circle. I'm glad I got to revisit the series, and now I pass knowledge to you. If you didn't like Tron Legacy, or you're not really a fan of Tron, I still would recommend this show for any fan of just good storytelling or great animation. I'm sad that it didn't continue, but what we did get is absolutely perfect. The show deserves nothing less than a 10 out of 10.